To a guy who I've been following on Twitter for, 10 years at least. Like this guy, I think it goes Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, and then it goes this guy, Aaron Wilson. So, Aaron, first, can you plug where all of our viewers should go to follow you? And then where do you work and what do you do? And then we'll dive into this Houston game.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am on X at Aaron Wilson underscore NFL, Instagram Aaron Wilson 7128, and I work for KPRC NBC Houston. We are the highest rated television station in Houston, Texas, and we have a website that I write for, www.click2houston.com. It's a little similar to what Mike Kliss does, who's excellent and a good friend of mine. I I go on camera and I write primarily, and I'm on camera some, but mostly I'm a writer. And of course, like all of us today, we're multimedia, and I'm on iHeartRadio Sports Talk 790, which is the home of the Astros and the Rockets and the Cougs.
Sweet, man. Yeah, let's dive into it. So I think first let's start with coaching. You got the fourth youngest coach in the entire NFL with D'Amico. A lot of rumors that he actually was the Broncos' first choice over Sean Payton. So I guess, had you heard that as well? And then why on earth would D'Amico choose the Texans over playing for the owners of Walmart? I guess. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah, interesting question. So, D'Amico Ryans, late in the process, when the Texans were pretty far down the road with him already, did get an offer to talk to the Broncos. And it's my understanding that if anything had fallen through with Sean Payton, that they would have been fine with pivoting to D'Amico. I don't think they got very far in negotiations with Jimmy Sexton and D'Amico's other representatives, but the Texans were going to probably spend whatever they had to. His contract, I've been told, is worth up to $9 million annually, and so he's a very highly paid first-year coach. Of course, Sean makes more than that. It wouldn't surprise me if Sean Payton made, 15 to $20 million or something like that. Up there like that Bill Belichick type of category because he's a Super Bowl winning coach. I feel like
Yeah,
Sean and the Broncos were always a fit, and the Texans, they had zeroed in on D'Amico, who, why would he choose them? Well, it's home. He was a Pro Bowl linebacker here. He was a Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was a team captain. He still has friends and family. It was so highly attended, D'Amico's homecoming press conference, with former players like Brian Cushing and Andre Johnson, great players that he played with, and the support from alums like J.J. Watt, also another former teammate. And these guys all just call him Cap, as in Captain, Captain Ryans. And he's just highly respected. He still goes to the same church that he's a pretty devout guy. And him and his wife and his kids go to this church here in the Houston area. Same one he went to when he was playing football here. So I think it just felt comfortable for him. And I think he wanted to try to boost the Texans, who have been floundering for years since, the better part of the Bill O'Brien era. And, they'd had 3 consecutive losing seasons. They'd been through, technically, counting the interim coach, 4 coaches: Bill O'Brien, Romeo Crennel, the interim coach, David Culley, and Lovie Smith. And they really didn't aim very high, obviously, with Culley, who had never even been a coordinator before, or Lovie Smith, who the game had passed him by. So this time, they were like, let's get our guy. And they felt strong conviction, the McNair family, about it. And they were right about him, that he was a dynamic leader, that he was a good strategist, that he was actually a real coach. And he looks the part. He looks like he can still play a little bit. He's in the weight room still. He's a big, strong guy. I think they just found the right guy. And he's also very, very smart and very modern. And being a younger guy, but not too young, he's just kind of just right. So to me, each franchise, and he was asked this question about the Penner family this week, and he had high praise for the Penners. And he said, he was really honored to sit down with them and thinks really highly of them. But I think this was the right place for him. And I think for Sean, obviously he's doing a great job and he's turned things around. They're on a 5-game winning streak. They're the hottest team in the NFL. And they figured out really their identity, who they are, which is a running team that plays defense, and the quarterback is a game manager. And I think that's what works. And playing good special teams. and guys like Marvin Mims returning kicks. I think the Broncos have figured it out, and this is a winning formula. It's a blueprint. But yeah, for D'Amico, I look at what he did, and that's a no-brainer decision. He's said that many times, and obviously the proof is in the pudding. He's been successful. They are, a game over 500, and this is the amount of wins that I'd projected them for the entire season, and they're already there at 6. They've doubled last year's victory total.
Yeah, to go from until that last win with Lovey, it seemed like you were going to be the worst team in the league with the number 1 draft pick. And now you're better than the Buffalo Bills and you're in that tie for that 7 spot. So what the heck happened in Houston? Like, what is the big difference to go from worst to basically a playoff contender?
Well, it's a quarterback league, and CJ Stroud is a consummate quarterback, plays well beyond his years. He's 22 years and about 1 month, and he has been uncommonly mature. He's very accurate. He has a lot of arm talent. He'll be the best quarterback on the field against Russell Wilson on Sunday by far. I think in terms of like how he throws the ball, health, stature, all those things. And, he's younger. Russell's had his day, and, this guy is in the absolute prime of his career. He'll only get better. He's on pace for 5,000 passing yards. He's the AFC Offensive Rookie of the Month, and he's also the NFL Offensive Player of the Month. So he's winning all these awards. He's going to be NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's under Pro Bowl consideration. He's a dark horse MVP candidate. I tend to think that it'll be someone else. And as well as Russell has played, this guy's played just as well, if not better. And I think that, it's going to be an interesting quarterback matchup with different style of quarterbacks. I think Stroud makes the biggest difference. Yes, they're better on defense. Yes, they have some good personnel. They drafted well with Tank Dell, good third-round rookie. I think Will Anderson Jr. is a solid edge. He's generated a lot of pressure. He doesn't get a lot of sacks. He's got 3 sacks, but he gets to the quarterback a lot. He's a good run stopper. And I think Nick Cassera did a good job with the roster, with building it around Stroud. And they were just fortunate. Brevin Jordan's a tight end for the Texans. And probably gave me my quote of the year. He said, the best thing to ever happen to the Houston Texans organization was beating the Colts and winding up with the 2nd pick and CJ Stroud. Because I can tell you this, no matter what they say, if they had top pick, they were picking Bryce Young.
I was gonna ask that. Yeah. So why did they want Young, and then how has Stroud defied who they thought he was gonna be?
Well, it wasn't so much that they didn't like CJ; they just had a preference for Bryce. They thought he was special, kind of like a Steph Curry type of NFL athlete. That he was going to be this dynamic playmaker. They liked his anticipation a little more. I think they had, they never will say this, but representation. He was represented by David Mulugeta, who had Deshaun Watson. They'd had obviously some friction during that era with Watson, and then eventually had to trade Deshaun. It was just, probably not the right kind of thinking that locked them into Bryce Young for a while. But they pivoted, and they pivoted at the end. They did attempt to trade up with the Bears at one point, kind of dragged their feet. The Bears felt deal didn't happen. They talked to the Panthers at one point. I think, they're lucky and fortunate that this happened, that they wound up with CJ. But once they got CJ, they had a lot of conviction about him and how they would acclimate him to the NFL. And Bobby Slowick and Gerard Johnson have done an excellent job coaching him. And, everyone said, well, does he have enough weapons? The interesting thing about CJ, because I covered every practice, is he would throw interceptions in practice, and you'd say, well, we think he's still going to be good. None of us were ever like, oh, he's bad. Even when he threw that interception against the Patriots, it was just more like, okay, he's got to get these mistakes out of his system. And so I think, not patting myself on the back, but I just think everyone here in the press corps was good about keeping his mistakes in perspective, and the team as well. But he used to do this thing where he would go up to the defensive back that picked him off and say, what coverage were you in? What did you see? What did I do? And he wanted to learn. And, you don't meet that many people that are like genuine about, oh, I don't know everything. I don't have it all figured out. So that's how he approached this season, and he wanted to. He said it this week again that you learn from failure, and he's right. Whatever profession you might be in, whether that's media or coaching or scouting. I know this. Sometimes I will rethink something. I'll say, you know what? I need to change my approach with this person, or I need to build my relationship in a better manner. Maybe I have to write this person off. They don't reply to texts or phone calls. I'm not really quite sure how to position myself with them. I'm probably only digging a deeper hole by trying to contact them more, that type of thing. So everyone has to figure out like what's their strategy, what's their angle. And I think for him, his angle is accepting coaching, being really willing to be coached, and genuinely, and maybe it almost sounds kind of corny, but just being one of these guys that is really, he goes out of his way to be a very caring teammate. He's a good friend to these guys, inviting people over to have dinner, having his chef cook for everyone, watching some tape, playing a little basketball with the guys, hanging out with the linemen. He makes it a point to come to his other teammates' charity events. Thanksgiving with Laramie Tunsil, who protects his blind side, their Pro Bowl left tackle. And it was kind of a surprise that he was going to be there. He was very busy game planning for the last game, but he made time. His mom was out there handing out turkeys at a local grocery store for his charitable foundation. So he made the time to come by, and it was sort of a surprise. We've been told, like, hey, he's not coming. Make sure you make it clear that he's not coming. He's busy. And then he did show up, in fact. But he's been great. He knows all of our names. I know that might sound like to viewers, oh, well, of course, you're in the media. No, that is not that common. He knows me. He knows about me. He's done one-on-ones with most of us. I've talked to him one-on-one a couple of times. And I would say that that's somewhat unusual for a rookie quarterback. But yeah, he has a rapport with us. And we, not for interviews every day, but we talk to him, say hello pretty much every day. It's not like you don't walk up to me. He's a very approachable guy. He'll joke around with you some. He joked around with me. He likes my track sweatsuits that I wear to Texans most days, and just a nice guy. I think that CJ has really won over the locker room, the city, and it looks like the league. He's picking up some steam. He's starting to become more of a national figure, not just someone that in Houston, Texas, people are very aware of.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL flexed this game up. It was supposed to be the later slot, I think in part because I think they all know Russ is back and we're going to make the playoffs. But I think the other thing would be the NFL wants CJ Stroud to be seen because he's a baller. So what would you say is the Broncos' best chance at shutting him down? Like when you've seen weaknesses, what is it? Man coverage? Is it zone? Is it when he's blitz? Like when is he at his, what game have you seen him at his worst, and how can the Broncos do that on Sunday? Not that you want that. I want that. But if you
I have
were
no
to
stake in
predict,
it. Yeah, all I want is to cover a good game. But if I was defending him and I'm Denver, like any quarterback, you do want to pressure him. I don't think you want to just let him sit because he's so good, he will find the open man. And his receivers are good enough, especially Noah Brown and Tank Dell, to get open. Nico Collins, too. I would definitely go after him. The offensive line is coming off of a bad game. They struggled against the Jaguars, and I would just try to create pressure. I wouldn't be that worried about their running game. It's been kind of hit a lull here with Devin Singletary and Damian Pierce. So, in my opinion, I would just take the approach of, I think in talking to Bobby Slowick, they were just talking about how the Broncos are so fundamentally sound. They have very good hands. They catch, they intercept the passes they should. And they do a nice job of setting the edge. They are a very stout, aggressive defense. And I think it's going to be difficult for the Texans. They haven't allowed a 300-yard passer. I believe since week 6, they haven't allowed 250 yards or more. So they're on quite a roll here. Even without that hard hitter that the NFL is
Kareem Jackson, yeah.
watching. Kareem Jackson, yeah.
Yeah.
Covered Kareem when he was here. Sorry, he can't play in this game. So he's a lot of fun to watch. He's just one of the toughest guys I've covered. But the rules are the rules. I would say what they'll probably try to do, Vance Joseph, they'll mix some coverages. They do some things. This was discussed today with Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator of the Texans, that Surtain will roll with a receiver. He'll travel with him. He'll shadow. But on the other side, it could be a different coverage. Like he could be a man and other people could be in zone. So there's a lot of man zone concepts that Vance Joseph employs, and they're meant to confuse you. And another comment that's been made is it's hard to figure them out pre-snap. It usually is until post-snap that you figure out what is the coverage they're in. So Vance, people taking notice of some of the nuances of his coaching strategy, which is, obviously has been very effective, and it's been a, good fit for them with, being the replacement for Edro Evero. So I like what they're doing on defense, and I think it's sustainable. I think we're seeing that the Broncos play a very strong brand of defense. And that's without
Yeah.
having Von Miller, him being gone for a few years now,
Yeah.
and trading Bradley Chubb. They're still rolling.
Totally. Yep. They're rolling, or as Russ says, they're riding. How about the other side of the ball? What is the Texans' biggest defensive strength, and what would their biggest defensive weakness be for Russ and that team moving the ball on them?
They're a timely defense. They're kind of a bend but don't break outfit, but they are pretty good overall against the run. I think that they are tough to run on. They're pretty stout. They've been eighth most of the season against the run. They have allowed a lot of explosive plays. If I was going to attack them, I would probably try to throw deep. And they've had some problems with avoiding defensive pass interference penalties lately. Last game, case in point. So I would probably just try to get guys isolated and be aggressive, trying to get those one-on-ones. If they can run the ball on Houston, then they'll have their pick and choice of play action or keepers, and they should be able to, pass to run or run to pass. It shouldn't matter. But if the run is stopped and it's kind of put in Russell's hands, is Russell good enough to beat their secondary? Secondary is the most talented part of the team. Derek Stingley Jr., Steven Nelson, Jimmy Ward, Jalen Petrie, and Desmond King. And they're going to have all of their guys for the first time this season, because they've had a lot of injuries, either Stingley Jr. or Jimmy Ward. They've all been out of the lineup, or Jalen Petrie at one time or another. The only guy that is out there all the time has been Steven Nelson, who's former Chiefs corner, Steelers, Eagles. He's been really stalwart. He's got 3 interceptions. I mean, it's not to say that you can't throw on them, but they are a talented group. And Jimmy Ward will hit you. He's a pretty hard-hitting guy. I look at them and I think, that's a good matchup, is the secondary against Russell. And, of course, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, some good football players. But, yeah, that's what I would say for weakness. Explosive plays, penchant for penalties, things like that.
And did you guys have some kicking issues? Did you just sign a new kicker, I saw?
Right, that's accurate. Yeah, so Kaimi Fairburn is on injured reserve. When Kaimi first went on injured reserve, they had signed a kicker named Matt Amendola, who has kicked for the Cardinals. He's kicked for the New York Jets. He's also kicked for the Chiefs. And he's a younger kicker, 26 years old. He's bounced around a little bit, and he kicked at Oklahoma State collegiately, went undrafted. He's a very strong kicker, big leg. He almost made a 58-yarder, and it hit the crossbar. It was a few inches shy of probably where it would have bounced through or gone through. And he powered it, but it did not go in, and he'd also missed a 50-yarder. He's on kind of a bad streak now where he's 3 for 6, and he's got to make his kicks. And I doubt if they would have him kick 50 or above in this game unless they absolutely have to. So Matt is going to be the kicker for one more game, and then Kaimi Fairburn will be back from injured reserve from a strained quadriceps. So, yes, they're dealing with an emergency kicker situation, and it's not enviable at this time of year here late in the season, but It is what it is. People get hurt in the NFL, including kickers. So they tried out some kickers this week. They were not totally sure about Matt, and then they ultimately decided not to sign any of those kickers and stick with Matt Amendola. And he's off the 53. He's on the practice squad. They'll elevate him on Saturday to the active roster one more time, and then he'll kick against Denver.
Cool. Well, I mean, this game is crucial for both teams. Really, you just look at the variance of if you win, your chances of making the playoffs versus if you lose. So how do you see it playing out? What do you do? Score predictions or not? Because you're in the media there. How do you think it plays out on Sunday?
I'll venture a educated guess. I think Texans can win this game 24-21, and maybe the aforementioned Matt Amendola comes through this time with a late field goal.
All right, I think Justin Simmons will jump over the center and block it and go to overtime, and then Russell is dangerous and Broncos win in overtime.
Maybe Russ will cook. Maybe they'll spoil the meal. We'll see. That's why they play the games, and we just talk about
100%, man. Absolutely. Well, can't thank you enough for being here, man. I will link all your stuff down below in the show notes, and I hope Broncos fans go follow this guy because he is so plugged in, and not just the Texans, but the whole NFL.